The Atlacatl Battalion remains a stark symbol of the Salvadoran Civil War, a force heralded as a professional elite, yet forever defined by the atrocities it committed against its own people. In the early 1980s, the mountains of Morazán became the testing ground for a new kind of warfare. The story of the Atlacatl is the story of a nation torn between Cold War ideologies and the human cost of scorched earth tactics. Welcome to this historical overview. Today, we examine the rise, the operations, and the long-delayed legal reckoning of the Atlacatl Battalion, the first rapid response unit of the Salvadoran military. We will explore how international aid and domestic policy converged to create a legacy that still haunts El Salvador today. The battalion's birth in March 1981 was no accident. As the FMLN guerrillas gained ground, the Reagan administration sought to professionalize the Salvadoran military, injecting millions in aid and specialized equipment to secure Central America against communist influence. U.S. advisors from the 7th Special Forces Group were central to this transformation. Trained at Sitio del Niño, these soldiers were taught aggressive small unit tactics designed for high-speed counterinsurgency. While their curriculum technically included human rights, the operational reality on the ground would soon reveal a military culture that prioritized total territorial control over the lives of civilians. The Atlacatl was the first of the BIRIs, elite battalions meant to hunt guerrilla support networks. In practice, this anvil and hammer strategy often meant targeting rural villages suspected of harboring rebellion, leading to widespread scorched earth operations that left entire communities destroyed. In December 1981, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Domingo Monterosa, the battalion launched Operation Rescue. They entered the village of El Mozote, a community known for its religious neutrality, whose residents believed their innocence would protect them from the coming storm. Over 4 days, the battalion systematically murdered over 900 people. Men were tortured and executed, while women were raped and killed. The most harrowing act was the slaughter of over 140 children in the town's convent. It remains the largest single mass killing in modern Latin American history, a crime that defined the unit's infamy. A single survivor, Rufina Amaya, hid in the brush and heard the screams of her own children. Her testimony, initially dismissed as guerrilla propaganda by both El Salvador and the United States, would eventually be corroborated by the scientific evidence found during exhumations a decade later. The work of forensic experts eventually dismantled the official silence. Exhumations at the site confirmed that the vast majority of the victims were non-combatants, primarily children, proving that the massacre was not a crossfire event, but a deliberate act of mass execution. The immediate aftermath saw a sophisticated cover-up. U.S. embassy officials and the Salvadoran military leadership actively worked to discredit journalists Raymond Bonner and Alma Guillermo Prieto to ensure the flow of military aid remained uninterrupted, prioritizing Cold War strategy over humanitarian accountability. The battalion's legacy of violence continued throughout the war. In November 1989, members of the Atlacatl were responsible for the murder of 6 Jesuit priests, their housekeeper, and her daughter at the University of Central America, an atrocity that finally forced the international community to demand an end to the conflict. Other operations, such as the massacre at El Calabozo, further solidified the battalion's reputation for brutality. Hundreds more civilians were killed as the unit pursued its goal of total elimination of perceived subversion across the Salvadoran countryside. Though the Atlacatl was disbanded under the 1992 peace accords, justice was frozen for decades by amnesty laws. Since the Supreme Court struck down those laws in 2016, the path to prosecution has reopened. Yet high-ranking military and political figures continue to obstruct the search for the full truth. Today, the case remains a battleground. Military leaders and modern political figures have frequently blocked access to critical archives, leaving the families of El Mozote still waiting for the full measure of accountability that was promised decades ago. The struggle for justice is far from over. To summarize, the Atlacatl Battalion was a product of Cold War intervention that became a machine of internal repression. Its legacy is a warning about the cost of militarized policing and the vital necessity of historical memory. Thank you for joining this study. Remembering these events is the first step toward ensuring they are never repeated. For El Salvador, the journey from memory to justice continues.